Eli had always been fascinated by the stars and the mysteries they held. As a young engineer at the Terra Nova spaceport, his job usually involved the maintenance of spacecrafts, but today his routine was pleasantly interrupted. A crowd had gathered at Docking Bay 7, buzzing with anticipation over the arrival of an envoy from Veilon, a planet known more for its secretive inhabitants than its diplomatic exchanges. "Hey Eli, you're not going to believe this," called out his colleague, Marcus. As he approached, his eyes wide with excitement. "The Veilons sent an actual envoy this time. They say she's something special." Eli raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "An envoy? Here? What are they thinking? Just come and see for yourself." "This is different," Marcus insisted, pulling him towards the gathering crowd. As they made their way through the spaceport, Eli's gaze landed on her. The alien girl stood in the center of a small entourage of human diplomats and her own kind. Her skin shimmered subtly under the artificial lights, changing colors with her movements. Her eyes, large and luminous, scanned the room curiously. "Wow, she really stands out, doesn't she?" Eli murmured, unable to look away. "That's Irina," a voice said from beside them. Turning, they saw Anna, a senior engineer known for her work on interstellar communication technologies. "She's not just an envoy. She's genetically engineered for perfection in diplomacy." Eli, Marcus, and Anna watched as Irina politely nodded to her greeters, her expression serene yet unreadable. As the crowd began to disperse, Eli's curiosity won over. "I'm going to introduce myself." "Good luck with that," Marcus chuckled. "Remember, she's probably designed to handle folks like you." Eli approached Irina, his heart pounding slightly. "Hi, I'm Eli. I work here at the spaceport. Welcome to Terra Nova." Irina turned her gaze to him, her eyes reflecting a star-like twinkle. "Thank you, Eli. I am Irina. It is a pleasure to meet someone so integral to the operations here." Her voice was melodic, and despite her formal tone, there was a hint of genuine curiosity. "This place is much different from Veilon. Everything here is so vibrant and chaotic." Eli laughed softly. "Yeah, it can get pretty busy. It must be a big change from what you're used to." "It is intriguing," Irina admitted, her head tilting slightly as she observed the hustle of the spaceport. "I would like to learn more about your role here, Eli, and perhaps understand this chaos." "I'd be happy to show you around," Eli offered, pleased by her interest. "Actually, there's a lot more to see than just the docking bays and shuttles." Irina's lips curved in a small, appreciative smile. "I would like that very much." As Eli, accompanied by Marcus and Anna, led Irina through the various sections of the spaceport, explaining their functions and the technology behind them, the initial barriers of formality began to break down. Irina listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that surprised Eli with their depth. "Your understanding of technology is impressive," Eli noted as they paused before a spacecraft being prepared for a deep space mission. "My people value knowledge above many things," Irina responded. "But there is much about human emotion and interaction that I find complex." "That's one way to put it," Marcus interjected with a grin. "Humans can be pretty complicated." Anna nodded in agreement. "But that's what makes things interesting around here. You get to meet all sorts of folks." As the tour continued, Eli found himself more and more intrigued by Irina. She was a blend of Veilon perfection and a burgeoning curiosity about human ways. As the day drew to a close, Eli realized he was looking forward to seeing her again. There was something about Irina that went beyond her engineered perfection. A spark of something uniquely her own, waiting to be understood. Chapter 2. Unfamiliar Ground. Eli adjusted the straps on the heavy bag slung over his shoulder as he led Irina and Marcus through the bustling marketplace just beyond the port. The sprawling bazaar was a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. Vendors hawking wares, children darting through narrow aisles, and off-world traders negotiating deals. It was a slice of chaos Irina had never experienced before. "So, this is your idea of an orientation?" Marcus asked, grinning as he hefted his own bag full of spare parts and tools. I thought we were just picking up the new relay chips, not taking a tour of the wild side. Call it multitasking, Eli replied. Besides, Irina seemed curious about human culture. No better place to get a crash course. Irina walked slightly behind them, her head swiveling as she tried to take in every detail. Her usual composed expression flickered with moments of subtle surprise. She stopped abruptly in front of a booth where a vendor was selling intricate hand-woven tapestries. The alien patterns and earthy colors caught her eye. "What is the purpose of these?" she asked, pointing at a particularly ornate wall hanging. Eli looked back, following her gaze. "They're tapestries. People use them for decoration. They tell a story, or sometimes just make a room feel warmer, more welcoming." "They are not functional, then?" Irina inquired, her head tilting slightly as she studied the patterns. "Well, I guess that depends on how you define functional," Eli said, stepping closer. "Humans don't just live for what we need to survive. We create things to reflect who we are. It's about expression." Marcus smirked. Translation: humans love clutter. Irina's gaze lingered on the tapestry. Expression, that is a concept my creators spoke of, but it was never encouraged. Our structures on Valon are efficient, minimal. There is little room for what you call clutter. Eli crouched slightly to get a better view of her face. "Do you like it?" She hesitated, her glowing eyes tracing the intricate patterns. "I am not certain, but it is interesting. I wish to understand it." "Then let's keep looking around," Eli said, gesturing ahead. "There's plenty more to see." They continued through the maze of stalls. Eli pointed out local foods, handcrafted jewelry, and a merchant selling model starships. Marcus occasionally chimed in with sarcastic remarks, while Irina asked questions that Eli found surprisingly insightful. "Why do people barter so aggressively here?" Irina asked as they passed a heated negotiation over a stack of exotic spices. Eli shrugged. "It's just part of the culture. Some people enjoy the back and forth, the thrill of striking a deal. It's almost like a game." "A game," Irina repeated softly, as if testing the word. "And yet it seems to cause frustration as well as enjoyment." Marcus chuckled. "That's humans for you. We like to complicate things. Keeps life interesting." By the time they reached the small electronics shop Eli had in mind, Irina's demeanor had shifted. She wasn't just observing. She was beginning to interact. She spoke to the shopkeeper, asking about the origin of the components they needed. Though her questions were direct, her voice held a note of genuine interest that seemed to catch the shopkeeper off guard. Eli noticed how her carefully chosen words made the usually gruff merchant soften and respond more openly. "Eli, are these the chips we require?" she asked, holding up a small box. He stepped over to check. "Yeah, those are the ones." "Good eye. I examined the schematic you provided earlier," Irina said. "I memorized the specifications." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Efficient, I'll give you that." As they finalized their purchase, the shopkeeper handed Irina a small decorative trinket, a tiny, glowing orb suspended in a clear sphere. "Here," he said somewhat awkwardly. "A gift, for someone who's genuinely curious." Irina blinked at the unexpected gesture. "Thank you. But why would you give this to me without compensation?" Eli smiled. "Sometimes humans do things just to be kind. No strings attached." She studied the orb for a moment before slipping it into her satchel. "I will remember this gesture." On the way back to the port, they stopped by a food vendor serving steaming bowls of stew. Eli ordered one for himself and nudged Marcus. "You want some?" "Sure," Marcus said. "I'll take one." Irina hesitated. "I do not require sustenance in the same manner you do." Eli handed her a bowl anyway. "It's not about need. Just try it. See what you think." She took the bowl, examining the contents before taking a cautious sip. Her eyes widened slightly. "This is different. I have never tasted anything like it." "It's called flavor," Marcus said with a grin. "One of our better inventions." Eli laughed. "Don't let him fool you. He's just happy he doesn't have to cook." The three of them sat on a low stone bench, eating and watching the lively marketplace. For the first time, Eli noticed Irina's posture relax, her usually perfect poise softening just a little. He leaned back, content to let the moment stretch on. "This is chaos," Irina said eventually, her voice quieter now. "Yeah, it is," Eli admitted. "But it is alive, vibrant. I see why you value it." Eli glanced at her, surprised. "You're getting the hang of this whole human thing." She met his gaze, her glowing eyes thoughtful. "Perhaps, but there is still much to learn." "Good thing we've got plenty of time," Eli said, smiling. Marcus raised his bowl. "To chaos." Irina tilted her head. "To chaos," she repeated, a faint smile forming. Chapter 3, The Festival of Lights. The marketplace buzzed with excitement as Eli and Marcus maneuvered through the growing crowds, their arms loaded with supplies. Paper lanterns were strung from every available surface, their warm glow casting a golden hue across the busy streets. Vendors called out from their stalls, offering everything from spiced pastries to intricately carved wooden ornaments. Children darted between adults, laughter trailing behind them like an invisible thread. Irina followed a step behind, her luminous eyes taking in every detail. Though her expression was calm, Eli could tell she was fascinated. She occasionally tilted her head, as if filing each observation into a mental catalog. He chuckled to himself. She might have been engineered for diplomacy, but experiencing a human festival was clearly beyond her initial programming. "So, this is what you humans do for fun?" Irina asked, her voice low yet clearly audible over the chatter around them. "Pretty much," Eli said. "It's not just about fun, though. The Festival of Lights is all about connection. People from all over the colony come together to celebrate. Family, friends, neighbors, even strangers." Irina's gaze moved from the glowing lanterns to a group of people gathered around a street performer playing a lively tune on an old-fashioned violin. The musician's fingers danced across the strings, drawing cheers and applause from his small audience. "That man," Irina said, gesturing toward the performer. "He does not appear to be fulfilling a necessary role, yet the others seem moved." "He's entertaining them," Marcus explained. "Music's one of the ways we share emotion. It can lift your spirits, make you think, or help you feel connected to other people. It's not about necessity. It's about creating moments that mean something." Irina's glowing eyes lingered on the performer for a moment longer. "Meaning is not something my people emphasize. We prioritize efficiency and function over sentiment." "Well, welcome to the other side of things," Eli said with a smile. "Now come on. We're running late." The trio made their way toward the festival's central square. As they rounded a corner, Irina's steps faltered, and she stopped in the middle of the street. Eli and Marcus turned to see what had caught her attention. A sprawling tree, its branches entwined with dozens of glowing lanterns, stood at the center of the square. The lights shifted and shimmered as if breathing, creating a mesmerizing display. Around the tree, people gathered, laughing and talking, holding hands as they admired the spectacle. Irina's voice was quiet. "It is beautiful." Eli stepped beside her, following her gaze. "Yeah, it is. This tree's been here since the colony was founded. Every year, people add more lanterns to it, more decorations. It's kind of like a living history of the community." "A history," Irina repeated, as if tasting the word. "You preserve these memories in light?" "Something like that," Eli said. "It's not just about the lights. It's about what they represent. Each one tells a story." Irina tilted her head slightly. "A story?" "Sure." Marcus jumped in. "Like that red lantern up there, that's from the kids' soccer team. They hang one every year to celebrate the season. Or that blue one. Someone put it up after their daughter was born. Every lantern's got a meaning behind it." "I see," Irina said softly. She stepped closer to the tree, her eyes tracing the strands of light as if trying to absorb each tale they represented. "Come on," Eli said, nudging her gently. "We can get a better view from over here." They joined the crowd at the base of the tree, Marcus helping clear a small space for them to stand. The sounds of the festival grew louder around them. Music, laughter, and the occasional burst of applause. Eli glanced at Irina, noticing how the soft glow from the lanterns reflected in her shimmering skin. She looked at ease, almost peaceful. "This is very different from the gatherings on Valon," Irina said quietly, as if speaking her thoughts aloud. "There, we gather only for practical purposes. Meetings to discuss trade agreements or scientific advancements. There is no celebration for its own sake." Eli smiled at her. "Well, you're part of this one now. What do you think?" Irina turned her luminous eyes toward him. "It is overwhelming, but not unpleasant. I think I like it." "Good," Eli said. "Then we'll make sure you see more of it." Just then, a nearby vendor shouted something about releasing the lanterns. Eli and Marcus exchanged a grin. "Come on," Marcus said, pulling a small paper lantern from his bag. "You've got to try this." "What do I do?" Irina asked, watching Marcus unfold the lantern. "Hold it like this," Marcus instructed, guiding her hands gently. "Then we light it." Eli grabbed the lighter and let it rise. Eli flicked the lighter and carefully lit the base of the lantern. As the small flame took hold, the lantern began to lift, tugging gently against their grip. "Now let it go," Marcus said. Irina hesitated, her glowing eyes fixed on the rising lantern. Finally, she released it, watching as it floated upward to join the others. Her expression softened, and a small, genuine smile appeared on her face. "It's remarkable," she said. "A simple act, yet it feels meaningful." Eli leaned closer, lowering his voice. "That's what makes it special. It's not about the complexity. It's about the moment." Irina turned her head slightly toward him, her smile lingering. "I think I am beginning to understand." The three of them stood there for a while, watching the lanterns drift higher and higher, until they were nothing more than specks of light against the vastness of the night sky. Chapter 4: Whispers of Deception. The morning light seeped through the port's glass ceiling, casting long shadows across the control terminals. Eli adjusted the settings on the console while Marcus leaned on a nearby chair, frowning at the display. Irina stood behind them, her glowing eyes darting between the screen and the two men as they worked. "This should have been a simple calibration run," Marcus muttered. "Now look at this. Frequencies all over the place, stray signals where there shouldn't be any." Eli nodded. "Yeah, something's not right. These logs don't match up. Either someone's feeding us bad data or the relay station's been tampered with." "Tampered with?" Irina asked, her voice calm but curious. "Do you mean deliberate interference?" "Exactly," Marcus said. "And that's a problem. These relays handle critical transmissions. Not the kind of stuff you want anyone messing with." Irina stepped closer, her expression thoughtful. "If this was deliberate, who would have the motivation to interfere? Surely not your own people." "That's the big question," Eli said. "But if we're going to find out, we'll need to pull the diagnostics logs from the central hub." "Great," Marcus grumbled. "More late nights with the hub logs. Can't wait." Eli shot him a look. "You'd rather leave it alone and risk someone having access to the whole colony's comm system?" "Fair point," Marcus admitted. "I just hope we don't end up chasing our tails on this." Irina glanced at both men. "I may be able to assist. The Valon diplomatic channel is highly secured, and it includes a network monitoring function. I could compare your logs against our own records." Eli raised an eyebrow. "You'd have access to that?" "I believe I can obtain clearance," she said. "However, it would mean contacting my superiors. They would need to know what we are investigating." Marcus snorted. "And how do we know they aren't the ones messing with our systems?" "Marcus," Eli said, his tone a warning. "Irina's been nothing but helpful. Don't jump to conclusions." Irina's glowing eyes met Marcus's. "I understand your concern. My people prioritize efficiency and control, and that can lead to mistrust. But I have no intention of deceiving you. I only wish to help." Marcus sighed. "Fine. Let's see what you can dig up." Over the next few hours, they worked together in one of the quieter tech bays. Irina linked her terminal to the Valon diplomatic network, while Eli and Marcus sifted through the hub's logs. As they cross-referenced data, the picture became clearer and more troubling. "Look at this," Eli said, pointing to a pattern in the log entries. "These spikes line up perfectly with the Valon transmission schedule." Marcus leaned over. "You're saying the interference only happens when their network's active?" "Seems that way," Eli said. "Irina, can you confirm?" Irina's fingers moved gracefully across the terminal. After a moment, she said, "It is true. The interference matches our transmission cycles. But this should not be possible. Our system is designed to operate independently. If it is causing disruptions here, it would suggest an intentional modification." "By who?" Marcus asked. "And why?" Irina hesitated. "I cannot be certain. But if someone within my network is manipulating these frequencies, it would be against protocol. I must report this to my superiors." Eli glanced at Marcus, who looked uneasy. "And if they're the ones behind it?" Irina frowned, her usually calm demeanor giving way to a hint of frustration. "Then I must determine the truth, even if it means challenging those who sent me here." The three of them exchanged glances, an unspoken agreement forming between them. If there was foul play at work, they would face it together. As Irina prepared to send her report, Eli rested a hand on her shoulder. "You're putting a lot on the line, aren't you?" She turned her glowing eyes to him. "If there is deception among my people, it must be uncovered. That is the only way forward." Marcus crossed his arms. "Well, you've got our help. But if this blows up in our faces, don't say I didn't warn you." Eli smiled faintly. "If it blows up, we'll deal with it. Together." Irina looked at them both, her expression softening. "Thank you. It is reassuring to know I am not alone in this." "Hey," Marcus said, smirking. "You're not the only one who wants answers. And if we're going to dig into this, we might as well do it right." With a nod of determination, Irina finalized her report and sent it through the secure channel. The room fell silent as they waited for a response. Chapter 5: The Nebula's Embrace. The soft hum of the ship's engines provided a constant background rhythm as Eli leaned over the navigation console. His fingers flicked across the controls, inputting their next course adjustment. The nebula stretched out before them in swirling shades of blue and gold, a vibrant cosmic cloud that seemed to glow from within. They had entered it hours ago to avoid detection and now floated in the relative calm of its vast, otherworldly expanse. Marcus leaned against the doorway, watching Eli work. "So, what's the plan? Just hide out here until they forget we exist?" Eli glanced up. "Something like that. We need to stay off their radar long enough to figure out what's really going on." "Great," Marcus said, rubbing his temples. "Another fine mess we've gotten ourselves into. I'm just saying, maybe next time we could pick a fight with someone a little less organized." "Funny," Eli replied dryly, "but it's not like we had a lot of options." Irina, seated at the central table, turned her gaze toward the two men. "This nebula's unique composition offers us cover. Its ionized particles interfere with standard scanning techniques. We are effectively invisible here." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I'm getting that. I just hope our luck holds out." "It's not luck," Eli said, straightening up. "It's knowing where to hide." "Well, I hope you know where to run after that," Marcus muttered, then turned his attention to the observation window. "I'll be up front if you need me. Let me know when the great plan is ready." As Marcus left the room, Eli turned his attention to Irina. She was still gazing out at the nebula, her glowing eyes reflecting the shifting light. He sat down across from her, tapping his fingers lightly on the table. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Irina blinked, as if pulled from deep thought. "I am processing. There is much I have never experienced before. This nebula is beautiful, but the circumstances that brought us here are complicated." "Yeah," Eli said. "It's not exactly the peaceful kind of sightseeing trip." She studied him for a moment. "You are very calm, considering our situation." Eli smirked. Calm is just the face I'm putting on. Inside, I'm working through about 50 different scenarios. How we get out of here, who we can trust, what we do next. Irina tilted her head. That is impressive. Humans have a capacity for adapting to stress that I find intriguing. I wouldn't call it a skill so much as a necessity, Eli replied. But thanks, I guess. A small, almost shy smile flickered across her face. I am grateful that you are here. Eli leaned back, surprised by her honesty. Hey, we're in this together. I'm not going anywhere. Irina glanced down at her hands, as if considering something carefully. Then, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing lightly against his. I have come to rely on you and Marcus more than I expected, she said softly. I do not know what would have happened if you had not offered to help me. Eli froze for a moment, caught off guard by the contact. Then he slowly turned his hand palm up, letting her fingers rest against his. It was a simple touch, but the meaning behind it was clear. For someone like Irina, who was not designed for emotional connections, it was a significant step. You'd have managed, Eli said after a moment. You're a lot stronger than you think. But I'm glad we're here. I don't think I'd have figured all this out without you. Her luminous eyes searched his, and Eli felt a warmth he hadn't realized he'd been missing. Irina's hand tightened slightly around his, and she gave him a faint smile. I do not fully understand these feelings, she said quietly, but I think they are important. They are, Eli replied. Sometimes, they're the most important thing. They sat there in silence for a while, the nebula's glow washing over them. It was a rare moment of peace amidst the chaos. Chapter 6 Bonds Beyond Design. The nebula's golden light shimmered through the observation window, bathing the small spacecraft's interior in a warm glow. Eli stood at the central console, studying the latest readings while Irina and Marcus worked beside him. The once tense atmosphere had settled into something more comfortable, even cooperative. Each of them had found their role in their makeshift team, and the quiet camaraderie was starting to feel natural. Okay, the relay is stabilizing, Eli said, tapping a few keys. That should give us a clear line of communication, if we decide to reach out. Marcus grunted. Big if. Last thing we need is for the wrong people to pick up the signal and trace it back to us. Irina looked up from her screen. I could enhance the encryption protocol. My people's communication arrays use a rotating code that changes every 2.5 seconds. Implementing a similar method here would significantly reduce the risk of interception. Eli gave her a small smile. That's not a bad idea. Let's set it up. As Irina moved to another terminal, Marcus leaned closer to Eli. You really trust her with all this? I mean, her own network might be behind the interference. What if she's leading us into a trap? Eli sighed. Marcus, she's had plenty of chances to screw us over, and she hasn't. In fact, she's been the one helping us make sense of all this. Marcus crossed his arms, still skeptical. Just saying we shouldn't get too comfortable. Irina glanced back at them. I can hear you, she said without a hint of irritation. I understand your hesitation, Marcus. Trust is not easily given, especially under these circumstances. Eli raised a hand to stop Marcus from responding. We're working together. That's what matters. Let's focus on getting these protocols in place. Irina nodded and returned to her work. Marcus muttered something under his breath and wandered off to inspect the ship's maintenance logs, leaving Eli and Irina in relative silence. Marcus is not entirely wrong, Irina said after a few moments. My people are known for their strict adherence to efficiency and control. It is reasonable for him to question my motives. He just needs time, Eli said. You're proving yourself every day. She paused in her work, turning to face him. Eli, why do you trust me? Eli looked at her, considering his words carefully. Because you've been honest with me. You've shared things you didn't have to, about your world, your creation, even your doubts. That kind of openness is rare. It's hard not to trust someone who's willing to put themselves out there like that. Irina's glowing eyes softened. Your perspective is different. On Valon, trust is not given so freely. It must be earned through action and reliability. Yet you seem to trust based on something more intuitive. Maybe that's just how humans work, Eli said with a small smile. We look for connections, for something that feels real. Irina tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. You speak of connections often. What do they mean to you? Eli leaned against the console, thinking for a moment. They're what hold us together. They make us stronger, help us get through tough times. Connections remind us that we're not alone. She nodded slowly. I think I am beginning to understand. I feel different around you and Marcus. I am not certain what it is, but it seems important. Yeah, Eli said quietly. It is. They worked side by side for the next hour, fine-tuning the encryption protocols and ensuring their communications would remain secure. The hum of the ship's systems and the soft glow of the nebula became their background, a peaceful constant in the otherwise uncertain circumstances. When Marcus returned, he carried a tray of sealed ration packs. Figured we could all use a break, he said, setting them down on the central table. Irina eyed the rations with mild curiosity. I have never eaten a meal in this manner before. Eli chuckled. Not exactly gourmet, but it'll keep you going. Marcus opened one of the packs and took a bite. It's not as bad as it looks. And hey, it's better than starving. Irina followed suit, carefully unsealing a ration pack and tasting its contents. Her expression was unreadable at first, but then she nodded. It is acceptable. Marcus laughed. High praise. The three of them sat around the table, sharing the simple meal. The conversation turned lighter. Memories of past missions, stories of unusual cargo runs, and a particularly amusing tale from Marcus about a malfunctioning cleaning droid that had chased him around the port. Even Irina allowed herself to laugh softly, her usually composed demeanor easing into something more relaxed. It was a small moment, but Eli felt the shift. They weren't just surviving together, they were starting to trust one another, to see each other as more than just temporary allies. As the nebula's glow surrounded them, Eli thought that maybe, just maybe, they could figure this out together. Chapter 7. Return to Valon. The Valon homeworld loomed on the view screen, its pale lavender skies swirling above sharp-edged, gleaming cities. It was a stark contrast to the warm chaos of Terra Nova. Everything here seemed too precise, too orderly, as though every building, every light, every shadow had been calculated down to the last decimal. Eli leaned forward in his chair, studying the landing coordinates, while Marcus paced behind him, muttering under his breath. This is nuts, Marcus said, stopping to glare at the screen. We're walking right into the lion's den. Are you absolutely sure about this? No, Eli replied honestly, his fingers tapping on the console. But we don't have many other choices. Irina stood near the observation window, her glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. I must do this. I must confront my people with the truth. It is the only way to prevent further deception. And what happens when they decide to turn you off? Marcus asked bluntly. Eli shot him a look. Marcus. No, really, Marcus said, folding his arms. This place doesn't exactly scream free speech. How do we know they won't just shut her down or lock her away the moment she opens her mouth? Irina turned to face them, her expression calm but resolute. That is a possibility, but I cannot remain silent. If I do, others will suffer the consequences of the deception we uncovered. I am willing to take that risk. Eli met her gaze. You're not doing this alone. We'll be with you. Marcus sighed. Yeah, I figured you'd say that. Fine. Let's just get it over with. The ship's descent was smooth, their vessel gliding into one of the meticulously arranged landing zones. The moment they touched down, a group of Valon officials approached, their silvery robes shimmering in the artificial sunlight. Irina straightened her posture and moved to the exit ramp, Eli and Marcus close behind. Envoy Irina. One of the officials greeted her, his voice cool and measured. We were not expecting your return so soon. Have you completed your mission? I must address the council immediately, Irina said firmly. There is information they need to hear. The official's gaze flicked to Eli and Marcus. And these two humans? Are they part of your presentation? They are witnesses, Irina replied. Their testimony is essential. Eli glanced at Marcus, who shrugged. Guess we're witnesses now. The official nodded slowly. Very well. The council chamber is prepared. Follow me. As they walked through the pristine hallways, Eli couldn't help but feel out of place. The sleek, metallic architecture, the silent corridors, the lack of any personal touches. Everything about Valon felt alien in a way he hadn't fully grasped until now. He glanced at Irina, whose serene expression betrayed no hint of doubt. She moved with purpose, her glowing eyes steady, her shoulders squared. When they entered the council chamber, Eli's unease grew. The room was circular, with tiered seating rising toward the ceiling. Each council member wore the same silvery robes as the official who had greeted them. Their faces were impassive, their eyes sharp. In the center of the chamber was a raised platform, where Irina stepped forward. Envoy Irina, one of the council members began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. You return sooner than anticipated. We trust you bring a favorable report on the mission. I bring the truth, Irina said, her voice clear and unwavering. Our communication networks have been compromised. The signals that have caused interference on Terra Nova originate from our systems. Someone within our ranks has altered the protocols, jeopardizing the integrity of our diplomatic efforts. A murmur rippled through the council. The speaker raised a hand to silence it. You are accusing our people of wrongdoing? Do you have evidence to support this claim? Irina nodded. I do. These humans, she gestured to Eli and Marcus, have worked with me to trace the interference patterns. They match the transmission cycles of our secure channels. The data is conclusive. The council member turned his sharp gaze on Eli. You are certain of this? Eli stepped forward, his voice steady despite the weight of the council's scrutiny. I am. We analyzed the logs and cross-referenced them with Irina's network data. The patterns line up perfectly. And who is responsible for these modifications? Another council member asked, her tone skeptical. Irina hesitated, her glowing eyes searching the council's faces. I do not know who initiated the changes, but the fact remains, our system has been compromised. If we do not act, our credibility will be destroyed. The chamber fell silent. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Finally, the speaker said, This is a serious accusation, Envoy Irina. You have done well to bring this to our attention. We will investigate thoroughly. Eli exhaled, only now realizing how tightly he had been holding his breath. Irina inclined her head slightly, her composure unbroken. Thank you. As they exited the chamber, Marcus muttered, Well, that could have gone worse. Eli nodded. Yeah, but we're not out of the woods yet. Irina glanced at them, her expression softening. Your support was invaluable. I would not have been able to present this without you. Hey, Eli said, giving her a small smile. We're a team. Marcus grunted. Some team. Let's just hope they don't decide to shut us out. Or worse. Irina's lips quirked into a faint smile. Whatever happens, I am glad we did this together. Eli nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they had faced the unknown and spoken the truth. Now all they could do was wait and see what came next. Chapter 8. The New Dawn. The first light of Valon's twin suns poured into the chamber as the council delivered its verdict. Eli stood stiffly beside Marcus, both of them glancing toward Irina, who remained as poised as ever. A faint tension hung in the air, but her glowing eyes betrayed no hint of fear. This council acknowledges the evidence provided, the lead counselor declared. The transmissions were indeed altered, and the actions taken by those responsible have threatened the integrity of our diplomatic mission. Steps will be taken to identify and hold them accountable. Envoy Irina, your courage in bringing this matter forward is noted. Eli exhaled quietly. Marcus gave him a slight nudge. Well, that's something, huh? He muttered under his breath. Irina inclined her head. Thank you. I am grateful that the Council sees the importance of this issue. The Councillor nodded and turned to address the Assembly. Moving forward, we must ensure our diplomatic efforts are founded on transparency and cooperation. This incident serves as a reminder of the challenges we face in maintaining trust among our allies. As the Council adjourned, Irina turned to Eli and Marcus. It seems our efforts were not in vain. Eli smiled faintly. You handled that well. Marcus smirked. Better than I expected, honestly. Guess you really do know how to handle these stiff types. Irina tilted her head slightly. Diplomacy is what I was created for, though this particular situation required adaptation. Adaptation, Marcus echoed. Yeah, I think that's an understatement. As they exited the chamber and stepped into the open air, the world around them seemed to hum with renewed energy. The precision and order of Valon's architecture now felt less imposing and more like a blank slate, ready for change. So, Marcus said as they walked, what happens now? Are we just supposed to head back to Terra Nova like nothing ever happened? Eli glanced at Irina. I think it's more about what we choose to do next. Irina looked between them, her glowing eyes reflecting the light of the sun's. I believe we must continue to work together. My people need to understand that perfection is not the ultimate goal. Your humanity, your ability to connect, to empathize, to find strength in imperfection. This is something worth sharing. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You want us to be ambassadors now? I don't know if you noticed, but we're not exactly trained diplomats. Eli chuckled. You might not be, but I think you've picked up a thing or two along the way. Marcus rolled his eyes. Great. Next thing I know, I'll be giving speeches about interstellar friendship. Irina's lips curved into a faint smile. Perhaps you will. But for now, we take small steps. Together, we can show both our people that cooperation is possible. Eli nodded. We've come this far. No reason to stop now. As they walked toward the ship that would carry them back to Terra Nova, the three of them fell into an easy conversation. They spoke of the work ahead, the challenges they might face, and the lessons they had learned. Each word, each shared moment, felt like another thread woven into a growing bond. When they reached the landing platform, Irina paused and turned to them. I want to thank you both. Without your support, I would not have been able to bring this matter to light. I value the trust you have shown me. Hey, Marcus said, brushing off the sentiment with a casual wave. We're all in this together, right? Eli smiled. Exactly. It's not about one person. It's about the connection between us. Irina nodded, her expression thoughtful. Connections, she repeated softly. Yes, that is what makes this worth pursuing. With that, they boarded the ship, their steps lightened by a shared understanding. Though the path ahead was uncertain, they knew they were no longer walking it alone. The stars awaited, and together, they would face whatever challenges came their way.